Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the County Seat. I am your host Chad Booth. Today we are going to be talking about energy. Energy is the topic of the day, the topic of the year, the topic of the decade in Utah. Well, it's estimated that we have the resources that exceed Saudi Arabia's entire oil supply if we can just get to it. And that will be the topic of our program today. It was the topic of a recent summit held in Uintah County. And we are going to take you to that summit and find out what some of the latest developments are in our quest to be energy independent.
When we think about oil and gas development, these are probably the images that come to mind first. But this isn't a story about pump jacks or what is pulled from the ground. This is a story about people. A room full of about 700 people who are invested in an area known as the Uintah Basin. The potential for energy development in the basin wasn't recognized until a few decades ago. In fact, when Utah was first being settled, Brigham Young sent out a party to explore the area, and they returned saying this of the Uintah Basin.
One vast contiguity of waste, valueless excepting for nomadic purposes, hunting grounds, and to hold the world together.
In those last 10 years, we've invested $2 billion in your backyard, and we're very proud of that.
Today, a different story has emerged among industries, research and development professionals, and local government officials who are planning for a brighter future in their communities.
Entrepreneurship and building wealth in the community is probably the best way to ensure success for your residents. That's why counties get involved and do everything they can to try and set that foundation.
The vast wealth of available resources of natural gas, oil, oil shale, and oil sands were discussed in great detail. The process of hydraulic fracturing, or fracking, and horizontal drilling were demystified, and companies shared their insights on how they determine where they do business. The goal in all of this being to find a solution to challenges created by mixed land ownership, transportation infrastructure, and an available workforce, along with mitigation of environmental concerns such as endangered species, air, and water quality. However, no matter how proactive the industry is at solving these problems, that story isn't being heard.
There's no other industry where it could be said that no good deed deserves to go unpunished, but unfortunately that is the case in the energy industry. Sometimes the more good they do, the more entrepreneurial they are, the more cutting-edge technology, it almost makes them a target. We are not doing enough to tell the basin story of what is going on here.
We have industry who wants to be here, we have the resources that are here. What can we do to help them stay here?
Events like the Uintah Basin Energy Summit are exciting to economic development directors like Irene Hansen and Tammy Lucero because they provide an environment to learn about future opportunities for a number of communities surrounding Duchesne and Uintah counties.
People think energy, that the wealth simply goes to the energy-based companies, and that could not be further from the truth. In fact, I would say that all of the other people that enjoy the wealth from that energy gets a way bigger portion than the energy companies will ever see. So how much of that do you capture in your community? It depends on what you have in place.
Educate our community on what's happening in our area, what our industry partners are doing, what their plans are. I think it's very important that government leaders know what's happening in our area and how important this basin is to the state of Utah and to the United States.
The story told today in the Uintah Basin may sound different from what you typically hear about energy production. So I'd like to challenge you to see for yourself. For the County Seat, I'm Derek Dowsett.
One of the Uintah County Commissioners that would have otherwise attended the summit along with Duchesne's officials was not available during that tour because he was out with the governor and their staff, and they were looking on the ground at the resources that lie within the county. We will find out how that trip went as part of our panel discussion when we return to the county seat. We'll be back after this commercial break.
Carbon County is typically known for its industry and coal production, but that's not all. Utah's Castle Country has something for everyone. Carbon Country Club Golf Course, with 18 great holes of perfectly manicured fairways and pristine greens, is second to none. And with 4 sets of tees, the whole family can enjoy our golf course. Plus, if you hit it bad enough, you might even find some Indian pictographs hidden in the cliffs above the 18th hole. Visit castlecountry.com for more info.
If you're looking for the center of the universe, well, good luck. Now, if you're looking for the center of the off-road universe, look no further than Paiute County. Hundreds of miles of trails turn your day of riding into a week, maybe even a month. Heck, a lifetime wouldn't be enough. Take off right from downtown Marysville or Circleville and experience fall colors that rival the most famous destinations in the world. There will never be a better time to ride the Paiute Trail than right now. Explore Paiute County and discover the magic and beauty of the land where the rainbow ends.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uintah Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking about the Energy Summit recently held in eastern Utah. And we have with us the commissioners from Uintah County, Commissioner Mark Raymond.
Good morning.
Commissioner Darlene Burns, Commissioner Mike McKee. There were a lot of players that came to the summit. There were a lot of different groups that had their say, and there were a lot of roundtables and discussions. What did you as commissioners learn from the summit? And I'll start that with you, Mike.
Well, being involved in the planning, obviously, we knew where we wanted to go with this. But I think there's some information that I would say that was highlighted that I don't think maybe all of our public really recognized. And that is the challenges that industry have in really being able to produce this energy. And just a lot of over-regulation or a lot of regulation that is making it difficult. And so we have tremendous amount of resource. This is where the companies want to be. This is where they want to do business. But the regulatory side is difficult for them, and that was brought up by several of the speakers. And I think that was emphasized, I think, fairly strong. And I think that was emphasized a little more than what I recognized that it was going to be.
Did any ideas come out of this summit or from your tour on how to address the regulatory issue and streamline that process so that these companies aren't pushing themselves away?
DOGM and the federal government have a lot to say with what's going to happen here, and a lot of people are talking about hydraulic fracturing. Even Lisa Jackson, former EPA director, said they are not aware of any groundwater contamination from fracking, and yet there's this continued misinformation that gets out here on hydraulic fracturing. And frankly, this is one of the areas that our industry was concerned about, is these are getting so tight that it can really drive away business.
Hydraulic fracturing is considered new technology, when in reality, hydraulic fracturing has been around for many, many years. The first examples of hydraulic fracturing in the Uintah Basin happened back in the early 1950s. So it's been around a long time. It's just that hydraulic fracturing, now used together with horizontal drilling, now that's new technology, and it's working very well, extremely well, yet it's still done in a very environmentally safe manner.
We started down the road of challenges. We're going to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll pick up with that and talk about some of the challenges that face the Uintah Basin in its energy development in the future. Stay with us. We'll be right back with the county seat.
The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, SITLA, manages 3.5 million acres of Utah lands with the express purpose of providing financial support to further the education of Utah's students, while promoting local industry, oil and gas, even residential development. all at the same time. Through the careful use of trust lands, the School Land Trust Program will distribute nearly $37 million to Utah schools this year. The State of Utah School and Institutional Trust Lands Administration, building the state's permanent school fund.
What brings you to St. George?
Business meeting.
Staying long?
Just here for the day. Quick in and out.
Hey, I just landed. Can we meet in a half an hour?
Not too bad. Why so fast?
Stay any longer, we'll run out of things to do. On second thought.
Buddy, something's come up. I'm gonna need another hour. Can we push the meeting till noon? I am definitely gonna need to reschedule. Holy.
Sit back, relax, and enjoy your 45-minute flight to Salt Lake. How'd that meeting go?
I should have booked a weekend.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Uintah County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. We're talking today about a recent energy summit out in the Uintah Basin. We are talking about energy in the Uintah Basin. Commissioner McKee, I have heard this said many times, and it's a pretty verifiable fact that there is more energy sitting out there in oil shale and oil sands than petroleum sits in all of Saudi Arabia. Is that not correct?
Very true. USGS numbers state that in the Uintah Basin alone, there's 1.32 trillion barrels of oil and oil shale. Compare that to Saudi Arabia, which is generally considered the mega king of oil, 262 billion barrels. So there's, what, 5 or 6 times more oil just in oil shale in the Uintah Basin than in Saudi Arabia. Then you add to that, we have 111 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. We have 3 to 4 billion barrels of conventional oil. Compare that to, you know, up in the Bakken, a little less, but not a lot. And then maybe around 30 billion barrels in oil sands in eastern Utah. Half of the oil sands found in the United States is found in eastern Utah.
As a result of the summit, the challenges were highlighted. Enefit is predicting that they won't be fully operational till what, 2025, somewhere right around there. And so it's going to take them a while to get up to speed on things as they proceed with their oil shale development.
If I might, one of the resources that is moving forward very quickly, on the other hand, is Redleaf. As part of the governor's energy tour, we went out on the Seep Ridge Road, and one of the locations that we went to was the Eco Shale, or the Redleaf resources, out on the Seep Ridge Road. And we were able to stop there and look at their facility, and how far along they are is impressive. They actually hope to start moving their process forward this fall. And so October-ish, sometime as soon as they get their water permit, then they look at hiring about 200 people. And that'll happen over the next several months, but they will start moving forward on their mine site and their encapsulated procedure, which is a very proven process and very environmentally friendly.
Well, let's talk about the energy tour for just a second, and we'll turn back. You had a chance finally to get the governor's top staff from environmental quality and from gas and mines out there and put their boots on the ground, as seems to be the vernacular these days. What advantage was that?
It was very valuable. We had Amanda Smith from the Department of Environmental Quality. We had John Baza from the Division of Oil and Gas and Mining. We had our Speaker of the House, Becky Lockhart, was along on the tour. We had several of our senators and legislators along on the tour, and the opportunity to get them out there in the field and show them the vast resources that we have was extremely valuable. I mean, that is literally the source of our CIB funds, and Mike, of course, sits on the CIB board, but that's funding for all of rural Utah, and there's been many road projects built with CIB funds, many fire stations, fire trucks, water systems. The list goes on, and that's where the money is coming from, is our natural resources found in Uintah and Duchesne counties.
There are a lot of people that think that this whole process is is governed by just a small handful of people. Darlene, how many people actually showed up to the summit?
We had almost 700 people who came, and these are all business-minded people who are there for a purpose, and it was a very good turnout. Each year it continues to grow. This was our biggest by far.
That's excellent. Where do you, if you had to pick 3 of the biggest challenges to overcome that you know that the basin's going to have to deal with, what are they, as far as getting this all moving and keeping all the other players in the basin happy and prosperous?
Well, for me, it's fairly easy. I think, in my mind, the biggest impediment we have today is working through the air quality issues, and that is quite a hurdle to be able to work through at this point. Also, the Endangered Species Act is really a big challenge to us right now. Recently, there's an oil and gas sale, and the resource management plan guides what's going to happen on our public lands for years to come. There are hundreds of thousands, even millions of acres open, and yet there are less than 5,000 acres in Vernal that's going to be open for leasing in this lease sale. And so the reasons that these leases are deferred are sage grouse. You know, we get into all the other issues of prairie dogs, wilderness character, deferred, 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 deferred. And in time, that is going to affect the revenues to the state if we cannot somehow open that back up. And so these challenges are real, and there are ways to work around them, but I think we need to really get on top of these challenges so that we can continue to develop our resources.
What role does transportation play in it?
Well, and that was part of the reason that the governor sent this tour out there, was to look at those areas where transportation needs are so critical. When you look at the amount of potential production from the Uintah Basin and the literally millions of gallons of oil or barrels of oil that can be produced here, but we don't have a way to get it out of the basin. And so this study is looking at solutions to that issue. How do we get this natural resource? How do we get the resource out of the basin? Is it additional pipelines? Is it additional highway systems? Is it a railway? That's what this study will do. And part of the panel that we had at the Energy Summit was to discuss those issues, and I felt like it went very well, extremely well.
Is transportation solvable? So that recreationists and you know, business communities aren't encumbered by tanker after tanker after tanker?
Well, when you look at the Seabridge Road, which Uintah County has recently developed, and we're looking forward to a completion this year, you ask the recreationists that use that road, that used to have a flat tire every time they would drive out on the shale-rich roads, and now they can drive to their favorite locations on a paved road, and then it branches off, and you can get to those remote areas, but you can do it much easier, and there's less impact to your vehicle, and you can pull your trailer out there, and you can spend some time. So transportation issues are very important. They're important to oil and gas. They're important to the ranchers. It's important to the recreation users, the hunters, and those who like to go out and camp. Very important issues.
Takeout capacity is an issue in the Uintah Basin. We do not have rail. We do not have a freeway. And so this transportation study that Commissioner Raymond's referring to was commissioned. There's some very interesting information that came from that. One of the things that was discussed in this previous study, this feasibility study, it stated with 85% reliability that over the next 30 years there'll be 27,000 additional jobs created in the Uintah Basin if we can deal with these transportation issues. So it is a big issue. And so you asked for the 3 main things. Those would be the 3 main things that I would state. It's our air quality, it's our endangered species, and it's our transportation issues.
Pensaman.
Yes.
This one surprised me when I had an opportunity to travel out there with your colleagues from the county last month, that they are considering making an endangered species category on the anticipation that a future activity may harm the numbers of the plant, but they're healthy right now. How do you combat that?
Well, we're actually working on that as we speak. We're going to work to try and put together a conservation agreement. And so we are working with that with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and with the BLM. So we're actively participating in that right now, and we're hoping that by spring that we can have a conservation agreement put in place that would be accepted by the Fish and Wildlife to prevent that listing.
We're going to take a break here on the county seat. We're going to come back and talk about energy in the basin. We've looked at some of the challenges. We've looked at some of the information that came out of it. Now we're going to address misinformation when we come back. Stay with us.
Kanab, base camp for your southern Utah adventures. You belong in Kanab.
Carbon County is typically known for its industry and coal production, but that's not all. Utah's Castle Country has something for everyone. Carbon Country Club Golf Course, with 18 great holes of perfectly manicured fairways and pristine greens, is second to none. And with 4 sets of tees, the whole family can enjoy our golf course. Plus, if you hit it bad enough, you might even find some Indian pictographs hidden in the cliffs above the 18th hole. Visit castlecountry.com for more info.
The best part about raising children here in Vernal and the Uintah Basin is just the smaller community that makes you feel like when you go somewhere, you know everybody.
It's not too big, it's not too small. We're close to the Wasatch Front if there's anything we need out there.
So we packed up our 3 kids and here we came to Uintah County. And what a great place it was. What a great move.
My job has offered me the ability to college educate all 3 of my children.
My father, he was an engineer for Chevron, retired 39 some odd years. And Jeff, my husband, it's the same way. He's always worked in the oil and gas, always had a job here.
Uintah Basin has been fantastic in supporting what we've tried to do both as a business and also in the development of mountain bike trails and the sport of mountain biking.
One of the big reasons why I live where I live is I'm able to run up to a beautiful place like this and spend some good quality time. There's always plenty to do in Uintah County.
There's no need to travel far to find that perfect family adventure. Uintah County. It'll change your family forever.
Welcome back to the county seat. We are talking today about energy in the Uintah Basin. We have the commissioners from Uintah County here. I want to go back to KSL's report with John Hollandshorse. There were several statements that just weren't highly corroborated by the environmental group that was represented there, and I'd like to find out answers to some of those claims. One of them is about the water. They said that oil shale processing is going to take a ton of water. You've been to Estonia. Tell me how that sits.
Well, you know, Chad, there are groups that are purposely, I believe, trying to give misinformation. There are people that do not like fossil fuels at all. Oil shale, I think, is at the cusp of really taking off. And so there's a concerted effort, I believe, to try to stop oil shale. And they're using old, antiquated information as though it was the current technologies to try and do this. And one of this is with water. And I might mention I was in Estonia. I heard the information. I saw it firsthand. But they're talking about, for example, when they start in the United States in Uintah County, they will begin with a 25,000 barrel a day process. In about 4 years, that'll go up to 50,000 barrels a day. They're talking about 2.5 CFS, 2.5 cubic feet per second. It would be their water requirement for a 25,000 barrel a day retort. That is very minimal. In fact, the fact of the matter is to get the oil out of oil shale, it requires no water whatsoever with the processes that are being employed in the Uintah Basin. But they do recognize that there'll be water for dust control, other factors. And so a lot of misinformation is being hurled out there.
To the other station's credit, they did take a soundbite from Senator Van Tassel, who said that most of the water was dust control. One of the others is that it's going to scar the landscape and that it will leave millions and millions of acres of open pit mining scars across Uintah County.
If I might address that issue, let's take the red leaf encapsulated process as an example of reclamation that begins immediately. As they build these capsules and they put the crushed oil shale inside those are a sealed bentonite capsule. And as the process takes place, as that's warmed up, there's overburden placed on top of the capsule, which reclamation begins immediately. And then when they go to the next one, and they start the next capsule, it'll just go in a domino pattern, and reclamation begins immediately, one after the other. And so as they moved along their projected area geographically, the restoration will begin as quickly as they're reclaiming or producing the oil from oil shale.
I was surprised when I was out in the basin after the tour that I had an opportunity to go on last month. I was very surprised because I continued out on Seepridge. I wanted to go to the end because I'd never been there. And I had an opportunity to get in and look at the oil sands project that's out there, and they allowed us to go. We actually had an opportunity to film it. What struck me is all this fuss and how small the open pit area is at any given time. And I asked, I said, well, is this just the beginning? He said, no, we take a patch out like this, we take it down, we cover it up, and we go on to the next one. So the disruptions are fairly small at any given time.
And Chad, if I might, just a real quick story. I'll do this very quick. But yeah. Our county recorder, Randy Simmons, related a story that happened just here recently. But he said a person came into his office and they said, you know, where do I find these really nice big elk? And so he gave him how to get down there and gave him the instructions. He said, and you stand right there and you'll get your elk. The guy came back and he said, how did you know that I'd get my elk there? He said, that's an old oil location. It had been reclaimed, mitigated, grasses were planted. The best grass in the whole area was right in that area where this had been mitigated. That's what they do.
Okay, so we know there's a lot of misinformation out there. How do people find accurate information? Because there's a pro-industry side of chatter out there, there's a pro-environmentalist side. Where can they go to get the facts? I think that's the most frustrating thing to people.
Well, you know, every single talk was recorded. It's going to be on our website, which is vernalutah.org. We hope people will get on there and watch. You can see everybody who spoke at the energy conference, and it gives you the information that people are waiting for.
And the nice thing about this, going online and seeing it, is they have given authorization for anyone to use that information. So if you see details, you can have it at your fingertips.
And certainly come to our open houses, come to the Energy Summit. By the way, we're having another Energy Summit next year, first week in September. We hope everybody comes.
All right, well, mark your calendars for that. We'll plan on being out there at that Energy Summit. I was at the opportunity to be at one last year. I didn't make this one this year. It was very informative. So please, by all means, get involved in this process. There's a lot of our future that's at stake in responsible energy development, and it sounds like Uintah County is taking the responsible side very seriously. Thank you for joining us on the County Seat. We'll look for you next week. Remember, local government is where your life happens. Get involved and continue to watch the County Seat. Thank you very much.
Almost 45% of the oil produced in Utah, 7.8 million barrels, comes from Duchesne County. That oil feeds our state economy, provides job growth, and supports local business. Here in Duchesne County, we're working to make Utah an economic, cultural, and technological leader. Whether you're here for business or pleasure, Duchesne County will welcome you with open arms and invite you to explore all the beauty of the Uintah Mountains. Duchesne County, close enough for business, far enough to get away.